Both of my grandparents, I think, basically went west and were either given land or bought land very cheaply because nobody wanted to go out there. It was literally wild. I think my grandpa had lost everything in the Oklahoma Dust Bowl, and he went out. And I remember I was in Arizona and my grandma drove by a field and she said, "You see that field?" She said, "Your grandpa pulled stumps out of the ground for 2 years before he could plant his crops." And you watched me not complain the rest of the day.
Yes.
And so they understood property rights because they knew if they owned that, then that's how they could live and build a business. And so that first early generations of America got it. Now, as we go a few generations more, people that maybe they haven't really felt capitalism or the property rights and how it's an important part of their livelihood. So they're starting to question that and say, why do we need this? And should we have more of a socialist or communist standpoint? And maybe we shouldn't own things and maybe we should vilify billionaires, et cetera. And so then when they look at crypto, they say, oh, you guys are just part of them.
Right.
You guys are trying to make the money. You got the billionaires that maybe aren't billionaires anymore, doing all these things, and the NFTs that are going for ridiculous amounts of money. And they say, oh, you're part of that capitalist crew. And I think what you're trying to say, Yat, is actually, no, we are bringing in a system that, because at the same time, those younger people forgot to own their data. So the Web 2 companies came about when they were all coming up, and we just gave our data away for free because we didn't know any better.
Exactly.
Just like the old colonial forces did, including the UK, when they would go to, say, Africa, they would give us all their resources away for free. So they're in this worst of both worlds scenario where their digital data is given away for free. So you need to re-educate them and say, guess what? Web3 is the best way to combat both, to get ownership of your digital rights, to understand why that's important, but also to exercise democracy in the form of DAOs, et cetera.
Yeah. If you look at, for instance, the sort of my parents' generation, from Asia, for instance, right, Chinese immigrants, they had no property rights, literally in their generation. Right? These are people who basically fled the country for a reason. Of course, things are much better, and now you have respect to property rights in China. And really, think about that. Without property rights, China would not be the economic miracle that it is today. There's a very clear parallel, right? All countries that have, basically property rights do economically much better, significantly better than the countries that have none or sort of almost no property rights, right? This is an established sort of data point.
That's probably the most important point of this entire conversation.
Yes, well,
because if you can understand that and apply it to digital, that's everything you're all about and Animoca is all about.
Yes, correct. And the whole point on that is that then when you own the property, the freedom to transact and the economic freedom attached to it is entirely yours, and you can do whatever you want with it. Being able to sell it is only one level of that sort of economic freedom. Blockchain gaming, for instance, one of the biggest innovations in the space that really took off when we spoke last year was something called play to earn, right? Now, a lot of people get confused about play to earn sometimes because they think that the value that was generated from play to earn, did it come from thin air? It was just the tokens? Was it just communities? It's kind of a similar sort of, Ponzi scheme. But actually, what really happened was that the gaming ecosystems already generate a lot of value, and this was a way in which basically the data paradigm could be fairly valued. And let me explain that. The gaming industry is a $200+ billion industry right now. However, of those $200 billion, the platforms take 30%. Right? That's on top, right? So that's a lot of value that goes to Apple and Google and Steam, right? So that's number one. Number two, roughly $110 billion in app install revenue will be going to these same platforms this year alone. Last year was I think $96 billion. So it's still going up. Gaming generally is a pandemic and a recession-proof industry because it's cheaper than going to the pub, for instance, right? You basically go play games at home, and it's also very social, and for this generation is actually perhaps the preferred way to socialize. So that means that of the $200 billion, something like 70% of that value goes straight into the platforms. How much of that money actually goes back into the gaming industry? And the short answer is almost zero. So that's the most extractive tax you can think of. So what Web3 gaming does is not the fact that, that you must make money from it. It's the fact that it unleashes and transparently opens up the financial ecosystem of the gaming world to everyone to see. So if you want to play the game for money, you can, but you don't have to. But you can play, but at least you know what it's worth. That means intermediaries can start coming in and providing better services or other services. So play to earn became possible, not because someone invented a system where you can basically sort of earn from the gameplay. I mean, that happened actually because Yield Guild Games came in and created that system. It came from ownership first. The bedrock was I can own an Axie, and then I can rent that Axie to someone, And the Gaming Guild came about and said, oh, I can make a business out of this. And that is actually what happened. A network effect was created, and that is actually what made Axie big, not the fact that Axie entered the Philippine market, had a big marketing campaign, invented play to earn per se in and of itself. Actually, it was an invention that you could argue is maybe co-created by the people who were building the guild system because they saw that opportunity, because they had ownership. So ownership is the bedrock of that. After this, everyone else can create new services on top of ownership, right? Because I have ownership, I can sell it to you. Because I have ownership, I can maybe give it to someone for, a mortgage, for instance. Because I have ownership, I can apply it in 10 different games, right? And if you just observe everything you own physically, not even digitally, just physically, just count the number of network effects that are possible with the one kind of thing that you own. How many things can you do with the watch that you own, or the car that you own, or the shoe that you own, or even the clothes that you own? What number of services and what number of employment have been attached around just the fact that you own these things? And when you start counting them up, you go, wait a second. It's much more than just the purchase of that item. There's a whole ecosystem. The fact that you wear this great looking suit, employs a dry cleaner, or, has someone who makes the cotton, or employs a fashion designer, has a store somewhere in Oxford Street, like whatever that is. That entire ecosystem comes from just this simple principle that you can freely own this item and you can transact with it freely, and someone else can do business with you just because you own that. I think that is sort of really important. And, we don't teach that at school, right? People go and graduate from school, they don't understand, from high school in this case, don't understand actually, why the world of economics works this way. We jump straight into democracy in democratic systems and maybe compare it against communism, but we don't actually go into the underlying economics around it. So are we surprised in that many of our young people are confused about it when they don't have that background? So I think we need to sort of educate people around this.
Hey, do you want to profit from crypto? Then join my DeFi Academy. The Crypto DeFi Academy will help you create generational wealth. But don't take my word for it. Listen to my students.
When I first got into crypto, I remember thinking to myself, I need to learn more. Brian Rose, learning crypto, learning DeFi, gotta do it.
I am so grateful that I jumped in and did this. I had to break through some limiting beliefs that I can do this, that I can afford this, that I can be in this.
It challenges the things that are deeply rooted within us.
Joining DeFi Academy has been one of the best decisions I have made on my blockchain journey.
This course was a life changer, a game changer, a huge eye-opener, coming from knowing practically nothing at the speed of the learning over 4 weeks was just fantastic.
The information you provided in this class was invaluable.
I feel far more confident in my next steps.
You took complex concepts and made them easier to understand.
What's different than so many other ones is it just doesn't tell you what to do. It actually makes you do it.
This is for people who are serious about becoming traders. This is the way it should be done.
I realized from this learning experience again that it is not about what you learn, but about who you learn it from.
The energy was insane. I've never experienced such incredible energy on a live call. Brian Rose, you are a legend, my friend.
It's the only thing in the market where you can get all information and learn everything what you need to know.
Everything is so clear and so well done, and I am just forever grateful for this program.
It made me feel so much more confident about crypto than I did before.
I did not anticipate how passionate I was going to become about it.
It's also been like a big learning experience for me, not just in the crypto space, but just an overall balance of life.
What I've learned is, how to take ownership, of my life in a way that I really hadn't before.
Yeah, you can't put a price on that, really.
I would recommend it to anybody, top notch.
Excellence does not come cheap. So if you want excellence, you got to pay for it, but it's so worth it.
Pull the trigger. That's what this course is about.
You're not going to regret it, really. It's amazing.
Thank you, Brian and team.
So what are you waiting for? Crypto is happening now. Click the link below, submit your application, and let me mentor you on how to create generational wealth and build the decentralized financial infrastructure of the future.